Well, we've come to the end, and the Ultimate Villains Month character bio has arrived. I hope you got my little teaser, and if you got it, I hope you enjoyed it at the beginning of the Mephisto bio, because who else would wrap up a Villains Month other than the Joker, and how fitting that it's on Halloween. Yes, this time it's the Clown Prince of Crime himself. He's by far and away Batman's arch nemesis, causing him some serious pain and anguish over the years. In fact, the Joker first appeared in the first issue of Batman's solo run in April of 1940, just a year after the debut of the Batman himself. The Joker's appeared in nearly 2,000 issues since then, making him one of the most prolific comic book characters of all time. He's been a mainstay in all Bat media, appearing in numerous video games, notably the Arkham series, to 2 Batman movies in the last 30 years, including a legendary performance from Heath Ledger, as well as a multitude of animated appearances where he's been played by the legendary Mark Hamill. He's been written by comic book greats from, Alan Moore, specifically, is a really great one. He was written by Frank Miller in the mid-'80s. He's been written by everybody. So where did the Joker get his start? The Joker was once a worker at a chemical plant, a job he quit to become a stand-up comic. His endeavor failed. He was a laughingstock, and not in a good way, and he was unable to support his pregnant wife and unborn child. In his time of weakness, some mobsters came to him and offered him a job. All he had to do was put on a red helmet, they said. Essentially, you're just going to dress up as the leader of the Red Hood gang, they said. He's a patsy, but he's just in case. He's an insurance option. They had heard about this new guy, the Batman, who had shown up, who was running around. And this was just, a fail-safe. Just in case things went wrong, it might be a little too hot for the real Red Hood to come out. But, he's okay. It's going to be fine. It's easy money. He's just got to stand there in costume. He agreed to the deal, though shortly after he began to have reservations about it. What if he got caught? He would just leave his wife and unborn child and he would be in jail, or worse. It was then that he got a call from the police. And his wife had died tragically in a fire caused by an electric blanket. And we really don't have those anymore. They were essentially insulated blankets with heating elements inside, and they did have a penchant to catch fire. It wasn't like a common thing, but they were often recalled, and you always heard stories about people, dying by fires caused by these electric blankets. Left with nothing to live for, he agreed to do the job. And Batman busted it up almost immediately. And as I kind of hinted at earlier, this was very early on in Batman's career, and a lot of mistakes were made. The Joker, dressed up as the gang leader, the Red Hood, he was kicked into a vat of chemicals, and when he emerged, his hair had turned green, his skin had turned white, his mouth was affixed in a permanent smile. The chemicals also affected his brain, and as the once dour, failed comic became a violent and hysterical sociopath, bent on the torment of the man who had caused his condition. Now, Zero Year has very slightly altered the classic origin tale. It didn't give us a full origin of the Joker, but it did make him the actual leader of the Red Hood gang, rather than just sort of an innocent bystander. Though, since that was all Zero Year told us, I decided not to change the origin from the Killing Joke's seminal storyline, as this is actually what most people think of when they think of the Joker. This is his origin. In addition, some might take offense to my line about the Joker being all about him tormenting Batman, and this largely stems also from the Killing Joke in recent media, which Joker paints. Joker often tries to paint him and Batman as two sides of the same coin. Batman, you're just as crazy as I am. They're indispensable from one another, according to the Joker. However, for much of the character's life and run, he sought Batman's ruin and nothing else. Now on to his abilities. Not many here, like Batman, he has no powers. But he's a highly intelligent but sociopathic criminal mastermind. And a lot of people might not think there's any, method to his madness, but there usually is. Come on, could a random just lunatic pull all this off? He's also a pretty adept hand-to-hand fighter, although he's nowhere near the level of Batman. But he does have an abnormally high pain tolerance, which is, what causes him to keep going. And it's unknown if this is anything different with him. It's definitely not like a kick-ass thing. He's got metal plates. It's probably just, the chemicals that altered him also altered, will and pain recepting, more than likely. He's also immune to his own Joker toxins, which comes in handy as those are usually his tools of choice. Now, on to some recommended reading. If I can find it. Recommended reading. And there's a ton here to pick from the Joker. Like, literally, this is just 5 stories. And I usually do 4. I had to expand it to 5, but you could literally find 1,000 different great Joker stories. These are, I think, the seminal works. And there's Batman #1 in 1940, which, of course, I had to list, as that is his first appearance. And what kind of bio would I be doing if I didn't tell you to go read his first appearance? He's pretty different than what he is now, but it is still a great story. It's a classic. And then we get to The Killing Joke. And interestingly enough, The Killing Joke is a non-canon storyline, technically. However, many often overlook this because it did influence Batman comics going forward in a very big way, thereby, really causing some questions about its canonical value. One such example of this is Barbara Gordon's paralysis. Before this, she was not paralyzed. After the story, she usually was, and that's how she became Oracle, because Joker shot her and tortured Jim Gordon before Batman caught him. And it was really, kind of a hellish storyline. It was Alan Moore. Alan Moore is crazy sauce, and he's really not a big fan of superheroes in general, and that's why it kind of has a different tone than any other comic you'll read, probably outside the realm of Alan Moore. It's a great Batman story, though. I suggest you go read it. It's really, even though it's non-canon, as I said, it has so much to do with Batman going forward. It really altered him. And then right around that same time, we get Death in the Family, which, of course, as many of you know, seeing as it's kind of been brought to the mass media in the form of Batman Under the Red Hood, or at least the tragic ending it was. Death in the Family followed, essentially, it just constituted Joker killing Jason Todd. And this was kind of controversial because it wasn't, quote-unquote, up to DC. They included a 1-800 number that you could call, and you could, hypothetically, let's say, taking DC at their word, you could decide the fate of Jason Todd. Would he live or would he die? And the votes recounted, and he died. And there are multiple things as to, whether it was rigged or not, or whether it was, scammed, because one guy had set up like a calling machine, and he had called in by far more than any other person for, yes, Jason Todd should die, hundreds of times, and that was a huge sway of the vote. In recent years, people have come forward saying they did that as well, so it looks like it might have been, rigged a little bit. However, there's some people that will still say that DC was not going to let Jason live anyways, so it might not make much difference. And then Death of the Family is a recent and, sort of redefining work for the Joker. He cut off his own face. It was new levels of crazy sauce, but Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo are a great, creative team. And I think Snyder in particular writes Batman really well, and he's still writing Batman right now, although he's going to go on, I think, hiatus very soon. And his New 52 run has been stellar. Go check that out. Death of the Family, really cool. He doesn't actually kill anyone in the Bat family, but it does sow a lot of seeds of discontent, and the Bat family kind of comes out of that disillusion with Batman as a whole. And then 0 Year, as I mentioned, this sort of retells his origin. He doesn't have like a major thing to do in this storyline, but it does really impact him. It does kind of change the story a little bit, so definitely worth a check out if you have the chance. It actually just recently ended. It was pretty much like an 11-month run. From 2013 to 2014, just ended in July. Definitely go pick it up. As I mentioned, that's another Snyder and Capullo, both very brilliant on Batman. Anyways, that wraps it up for me here. I hope you've enjoyed Villains Month. And Villains Month, just a little bit of background for you, is something that we had wanted to do a long time ago. We had wanted to do themed months to make the character bios a little more interesting, do something fun with it, catch your eye. I mean, people seem to enjoy the bios no matter, what we do. But we thought we would add a little flair to it with having a theme month. And we had planned this back in like April or May, and we didn't get it off the ground until just now. So I hope you really, really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed doing all these bios. I hope next time we schedule it better so I don't end up having to do 5 at the end of one, week leading up to it. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this bio of the Clown Prince of Crime. I know the Joker is such an interesting character. He's got such a varied history. It almost seems like a disservice to squeeze him into like an under 10-minute video. So definitely go out and do your own research. There's a ton of tools out there for you guys. Comic Vine is a great one, comic book resource. Even good old Wikipedia or the DC Wikia are all great as well. Definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. Anyways, that about wraps it up for me here. So signing off, this is CJ, and I'll see you next month with all new bios.